Hello and welcome to another Tuesday at 2. We are so thrilled that you are here today. We have a great special guest, founder of Leap Consulting Solutions, Lauren B. Jones. She's a leader and innovator within the staffing industry, and she's been doing it for 23 years, but she's got a really cool story of how she's gained her expertise in the industry. And she's decided to take that business to go on her own and take the leap into this world of entrepreneurship and serving companies from a different avenue. And Lauren, thank you so much for joining our platform.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Well, we first met, we met through kind of mutual connections, but via LinkedIn, my sister and I, we love starting this program and starting this thing because what it is, it's all about women mentoring women and sharing different advice and how you do things. And you've got such a cool approach of how you do your Ask Laurens and your vlogs, and you've just grown your business, really going from nothing to then having like a really good following and having that influence. So we are excited to interview and learn how you did it. And maybe we'll start with the first question. Can you just share, how you made that decision to go out on your own?
Well, I was, that decision wasn't mine. I was an early casualty of COVID-19, and I managed geographies that were hit pretty hard, initially, kind of right out of the gate. And what I felt though, preemptively before all of that happened was this like little burning. And I had been with a smaller agency, then went back to a larger agency because I just felt like I was missing something. Part of what I discovered in being a boomerang, so I left an organization, went somewhere else, and then went back, was that just that autonomy and freedom. And I was really starting to find my voice, and I just wanted a bigger voice. And so when I was laid off initially, I just decided no more. I felt this sense of the loss of control, just as many that lost their job during COVID felt that loss of control. And I just was like, never again. I just do not want to put my fate in anyone else's hands, in another company's hands, whatever it was. And you ever, reach a point you're like, that's enough. I cry uncle. I am going to take me, myself, and be the master of my own destiny.
That's so great. Well, I always love this one quote that I see on Instagram often, and it says, if you don't build your own dreams, then someone else will hire you to help you build their dreams. So yeah. I kind of kept that spirit alive. Can you just walk me through a little bit the adjustment of getting started? So a lot of women that we work with, they're on that verge of like, all right, no more. I'm ready to go out. I'm ready to start something new. But once you actually go from the idea of maybe I could start something to actually putting the wheels in motion, sometimes some fear can kind of creep up in like, not exactly knowing how to get started. And can you just share with us like how you chose your first initial steps to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, the first year, I feel like I woke up terrified and exhilarated every single day. It was this really weird feeling, like, jumping out of the plane and just knowing that I was my parachute, So the getting started part was I really had to figure out I have an idea of what I'm good at. I have an idea of how I could add value and solve a problem, because if you are doing two things, someone will hire you, adding value and solving problems, right? And what I saw just in my experience where there were three primary opportunities where I could make an impact within an organization. And I knew, I opened my firm March 2nd of 2020. So while COVID was a thing, I had no idea what it was going to do to 2020, right? And nor did anybody else. And so, I'm going to be super honest with all the ladies here. I spent all of March crying and drooling in a corner, I think, and then I picked myself up by my bootstraps and, started figuring it out. And I think, you got to give yourself permission to be a hot mess when you need to be a hot mess, and then figure it out. And that's exactly what I did. So I figured out there were 3 areas of opportunity. The only thing that I was going to focus on were those 3 things, because if you are, the jack of all trades, you will be hired to do nothing. And that's just what I knew. And so if I had clarity in my value proposition, and then it was, how was I going to get my message across? And I chose LinkedIn and I put every egg, all the eggs, any eggs that came after that egg in that basket. And it paid off for me only, because the numbers are behind you right now with LinkedIn. Of the people that are actively, there's 176, million people like actively engaged in the US on LinkedIn. Only 1% of them are putting out consistent content. And so I knew just, by sheer numbers that I could do something. I didn't know what it was, but I could do something. I could make an impact that way.
And did you find, oh, go ahead, Allison, sorry.
I was just going to ask, and what was it that you started doing first?
So I am a huge person that believes that what you put out, you get back. So initially, because I sort of felt the sting of the COVID-19 layoff, the first message that sort of went viral was an offer to help. So I was doing, my branding and, putting Leap out, making the pages and, putting my value propositions together. And, I saw my following, we were going someplace, but I made it my mission to either I was helping companies or I was helping somebody else, period end. I was helping in every capacity. And so when I saw the layoffs that were coming out, I said, in my spare time, first post I did that went bananas was, in my spare time, if you have been affected by COVID-19, please let me know. I am willing to give free resume advice, help you, do your job interview advice. And I was giving some job seeker tips. And that's where the real eyes on my profile started and where things really started gaining some momentum as far as visibility. And then, I took that visibility and then, grabbed a little bit more, and then you grab a little bit more. And once you have just a little bit of momentum, it's easy to, keep the choo-choo going.
And I love, so, when you're going out there, you're putting yourself, out there. So you have a vlog or you're posting certain things and you're using a social media channel like this one is LinkedIn. You really are taking the risk. Like you're putting up your, I'm in business, and then you have to kind of keep it going. And that can feel fearful because if, sometimes it's the likes or whatever kind of can cause some drag with social media. But what I'm hearing you do, and you can feel it as you're talking about it, you are just providing other people advice. A lot of people were in this tough situation, March, April, May, 2020. And as you were serving them, it was the catalyst of the mission of your company, of what you're doing, how you serve people within staffing. And it's something that you knew. So it was a great, I love that you did that because it just seemed like so natural as you were saying it.
Yeah, I just, I think, I put good energy out and then good energy came back. And then when that content started getting, so then I started, as I was helping people, helping job seekers, then I started helping companies. And I started helping companies by putting out, Technology Tuesdays. Here's some of the latest technology that's coming out. Here's what it would do for your business. So it was a natural transition, although I didn't really have a plan around it. It kind of all, I just thought the next step is, okay, I've helped a bunch of people. It took me almost 45 days to get through all of the in-mails that came in from that offering. And I helped every single person that, reached out. And then I was like, okay, the next logical step is now let me go help companies and let me show them how I can help them. And so Technology Tuesday, and then Women Crush Wednesday, and we had Monday, we had Monday Motivation. We had all of these different days that were happening, and Thankful Thursday was about, adding gratitude into your culture, and particularly during a time like this. So it was all. It felt very organic, and while I could say I put some brilliant marketing plan together, I did not. I just did what felt natural to me.
How did you navigate the change then? So you started to advocate for companies from working with individuals. did you come up with your own, so you help companies now with their technology? Is this technology that you're brokering, or is this technology that you've created?
So then I'm brokering. So, you know, I spent 23 years in the industry, and about a decade ago, my career took a pivot. You know, I went from running regions to, you know, help. I had figured out very early on that I could do more if I was the first to like have chat on my website. I had a recruiter like actually sitting there in 2011 and, you know, chatting with somebody. And I just figured out very early on that I could get more done with less if I was leveraging, you know, either process or technology. And so I was tapped on the shoulder at one point, you know, hey, could you help us do this in a bigger sense? And born was the like VP of talent technology, and, you know, kind of roles that you see today where there is a conduit or somebody sitting in between operations, marketing, and technology that can make some organizational semblance of, you know, create some structure, some strategy around all of those three things within an organization. Because right now, you know, technology is a driving factor for so many. So how do you take all of the, you know, innovation that's going on, you know, apply it within your organization with really good change management, get the adoption that you need to get a good ROI. And there's so many nuances. And then how do you market that? And then how, you know, how do you operationalize that? You can't take an old analog process, apply technology to it and think it's going to be fixed. You may have to look at your workflows and your processes and understand that, you know, change may need to happen. So those three departments really need to be working in harmony to go through an effective digital transformation. And I had been through many of them, and I knew that I could add value in helping organizations make their way through that, make really good investments in an expeditious manner, because technology moves so quickly. So you can't, we're no longer in a space and time where we can take a year-long RFP process with 12 steering committees, and you know, you just can't do that anymore. It moves too quickly. You need to make really good decisions. And I wanted to help businesses make good decisions, make good, create good process. And then in turn, what that does, it impacts the candidate, which at the end of the day, I feel like is the most important thing in the world. Is your candidates are your gold. Looking for a job sucks. So how do you invest in technology that is going to make every part of that process more meaningful and less stressful? And so it was all born of this. There's so much noise that goes on into just creating a really good experience.
And, you know, from the staffing firms, it's so important to have that technology, because to weed through resumes and actual people that could be qualified for the job, you know, there's a lot to it. So the more efficient you can get, the faster you can get the right person in the right company. But from the candidate's perspective, as you read, you know, their experience and their perception of their experience, they're starting to feel like they're just going, their resume might go out into no man's land, or, you know, they might not have the best experience all the time. Can you like go back to your original, you know, vision of helping people find jobs, and now you have this technology niche of helping companies make it easier to find the right people, but there's still this lack of clarity from the end user experience, the candidate experience of how do I work with these, you know, these resumes or these recruiters, and how do I submit my resume? Do I just flood the market? Can you just kind of talk a little bit from that point of view?
Yeah, some of the early very relevant is you have a responsibility.
Hey, Lauren, I can't hear you right now, so let's try again.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
We were saying earlier, I have a storm going on, so my technology is going down. My like Wi-Fi meltdown at the Stout House, and then when Lauren had a very minor glitch before, I'm like, oh, it so gives me such peace of mind to know someone that's very good at technology has normal experiences, and it's not just me.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, good. I can make sure that I can hear you.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Can you hear us? No?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
You're probably
we have magic.
You're probably the most composed person I've seen with technology challenges. We see technology challenges weekly, and I've never seen any one of our speakers so composed.
It's all right. I've done this a little bit, so it's okay. Your question was, really how do we give good advice to the job seeker? And the job seeker has a responsibility to make sure that they have a direction, right? One of the pieces of early advice that I gave job seekers when I was, putting that out there was you need to pick a lane, and that is on you to do that. And if you can pick a lane and maybe even do just a little bit of research and pick a few organizations that you think have some promise that you would like to work for, and then I'm just going to ask for a little bit more research for you to see who you might know or who somebody within your network might know. And because job seeking, the job seeking process really stinks, and we just haven't done a good job of making it better. So until we make it better, and some are doing a better job than others, as a job seeker, get organized, pick a lane, find some organizations you want to work for, write down how you would add value and why you're the right candidate, and then start pursuing those things, as opposed to this arbitrary, because that becomes an emotional component of the job seeking process that doesn't need to be there. And in the rejection, because there's this feeling of rejection, even if you don't get a response. But, and then agencies, and part of what I do in my work, we got to rethink the why we're posting a job. And we got to rethink if we're posting a job and we have 2 available roles, really, how many candidates do we need? We don't need 3,000, and so we need to do a better job of leveraging technology to turn off those job postings when we have enough applicants. So then we don't have 2,000 applicants to respond to, and we don't contribute to the experience of the black hole. And so there, again, so many moving parts on both sides. And, I want to try and bring those together so that there is a better experience. But if candidates can pick a direction, gain clarity on where they're going to add value, and then pursue opportunities in a meaningful way, they're going to have a better job seeking experience. And, asking for help from a recruiter is a powerful way to get what you want. And you got to manage your recruiter just like you would manage a manager. You got to stay visible, stay flexible. And, right now with so many, there's still many job seekers out there, and they say it's a candidate's market right now. But the problem is there's just so much noise. So it's up to you to get rid of some of that noise and pick a lane.
Yeah, because really in the recruiting industry, there aren't as many headhunters where people think if I go with a recruiter, I can sit back and they'll find me a job. But really they're being paid by a client looking for a very specific niche. If you'd hire a headhunter, that's a different story, but you would be paying out of pocket to begin the search. So I like your counsel being like, just making sure you're active, and similar to you starting your own company, you picked a lane, you chose what you love to do, what you're good at, and then you had a lot of fun doing it. Like you could definitely see on your Tech Tuesdays, and you get all giddy about, the technology.
I do.
Talk. You really do, and it's really engaging.
I do.
And I feel like that's really good advice for the candidates as well. I like how you phrase that.
I have one daughter who's just finished grad school, and I have another one who's pre-law in college, and I've told both of them, you don't need a degree, you don't need a traditional education. What you need is to find something that you enjoy doing. And I very quickly learned in my first burnout as an entrepreneur that it is a farce that if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. You will work hard, you will work until your bones hurt, and you will have a meltdown, and you just got to be ready for it. And it's just, how you react to that, how you get through it. Because the only way across, and the only way is through. And so you just need to be committed to whatever it is that you want to do.
and not care what anybody thinks. Because let me tell you, those videos at first, I was like, oh God, my husband was like, you sound like a ShamWow guy. And
ShamWows.
I'm like, but I'm really excited about this. Like, this is cool technology. He's like, you are selling ShamWows. And I'm like, well, I don't care. I'm going to slap chop my way to, technology. I don't even care. And that's what you have to do is like just slap chop your way through it, because I didn't even care. And then, people were having fun and people found technology interesting, which, that's not easy to do. So I just was like, just cut out the noise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask if you could give people who are just starting out a couple pieces of advice, what would they be?
Pick a lane. Pick a lane.
I see a theme.
Yeah. I mean, focus is really important. But you can't be unafraid. You can't be afraid to try things. I tried before we came to Technology Tuesday, before we came to Women Crush Wednesday, and we had Farm and Follow. Man, I threw some serious spaghetti up in the fridge, and I look back at one of my first videos, and I'm like, oh dear God, I'm terrible, But it's pick a lane. Don't be afraid to try. Ask for help. I wish I had done that earlier. And you are not the answer to all things. And I really had to learn that. And as I've, created some partnerships now where I can lean on headcount if I need it, or lean on specific, and get rid of the things that don't bring you joy. So, I signed my first partnership my first year, and it was to get rid of, conversion. And, that's not exactly the sexiest, funnest thing about, a digital transformation is data conversion. And so, I have created a partnership where data conversion can go to be done really well. And I don't have to be part of that, because that's not what I love doing. And so a couple pieces of advice would be, focus on what you enjoy doing, because you're going to do it well if you do that. So that's that. Pick a lane. Don't be afraid to experiment, and you just have to remove your ego and just not be afraid what anybody thinks. And that's not easy to do. It's not an easy ask, particularly when you're sort of a young, sort of scared entrepreneur. But if you can dig your heels into just, Heather Monahan says, fear is a green light that means go. Go.
Yeah. I love that quote. I hadn't heard that before.
She's wonderful. She is, and invest in yourself. Ladies, I am 47 years old. 47. I just bought and paid with my own money my first, I paid for a coach. That is way too long, way too old to not have invested in myself previously. So, if take the time, pay, you make just a little bit of money, take a percentage of that money and invest it back in yourself. It will be the best investment you ever make. What I figured out pretty early on was, once I got past the fears, because my husband has owned his own business forever and ever. He's a builder, and he rebuilt, he is a catastrophic loss. So he does the fires up in Paradise. So he's always been self-employed. So I've always had the corporate job so that we have insurance and all of that. We're in a really cool time. I was able to buy my own insurance. I was able, so that all of those fears and excuses that you might have traditionally make, golden handcuffs, all of the traditional excuses that you would make, can kind of go by the wayside. And I wished that I had figured that out 10 years ago, but that's okay. But yeah, invest in yourself, because what I figured out is, man, I work really hard for other people. Why would I not work just as hard for myself? And that was a really cool epiphany for me, is oh my gosh, I can make just as much money as hard as I'm willing to work, right? And I replaced my corporate income my first year. I signed my first $1 million deal, and I signed my first partnership, my first deal. And it was because, I asked for help. I did the list of things that, I gave to you. And I think anybody else can do it. And particularly now, because we're in this like really fractional space where companies are hiring fractional CMOs, fractional CDTOs, fractional CTOs, and it's how people are parsing out this really high level executive work that needs to be done, and making it more affordable and giving others flexibility. Locum tenens, so your doctors, we have this huge increase in locum tenens because they don't want traditional employment anymore. They don't want to just work for a hospital. We have a group of locum tenens in Australia that are following work where there's really good diving. So, we can work our life around our work and not the other way around. So there is a place for everyone. And that's the other thing, is that you have to know that there's room for you. And if you don't think there's room, go make room.
I love that we're into the period of let's throw the rule book out the window and come up with some other strategies, because now's the time, right? I mean, Marcy and I have always had the philosophy of jump in, the water's fine. We'll figure it out when we get there. But I love the idea of, let's adjust the rules, because, they're not quite working the way they should have. And in this past 18 months or so, we've really learned that maybe things weren't as golden as we thought they were. And
we have the great resignation going on. You have people saying, I don't need to commute 3 hours a day. And it's like, no, you do not. You do not. And here's the technology that we're going to hand you to make it possible so that you don't ever have to do that again. And we're in this just really cool space. And women in particular, we saw a huge percentage increase of women applying for business licenses. In Sacramento, it was bananas. The percentage of increase of women applying for business licenses, filing as a woman-owned business. We have a real opportunity right now to get eyes on our businesses, and carpe diem. You got to seize the day.
I love how much it's been easy for people to navigate it. But they have the certain mindset to navigate, like, okay, now I know how to be successful in this new lifestyle that I like. And regardless if you choose to kind of go back into the office, or if you start your own business, or you try to do a blended thing, it really goes back to what you're saying. It's like, invest in yourself, because you're the one person you're going to take with you. And if you're a better leader, a better, networker, your lane that you're in, you will be more successful with or without the company. And you will be more successful, just in general, like be more joyful in life if you're following the things that you're passionate about.
Agree. Yes.
Well, Lauren, this has been such an exciting conversation. We certainly hope you can stay on after our 30 minutes is up, but we're coming up to our 30-minute mark. How can people get in touch with you, follow you on LinkedIn, look for your Girl Crush was it Girl Crush Wednesday or
Women Crush Wednesday?
Women Crush Wednesday.
Yes, Women Crush Wednesday. Every Wednesday we crush on a woman, or we talk about a really cool female topic, or I'm sharing information. So I made a commitment in 2021 that I was going to one deliberate act a day to help another woman rise. Period. End. One deliberate act a day to help another woman rise, whether I was sharing her content, whether I was sharing her, making an introduction, doing business with a woman-owned business, that I was no longer going to be a part of the problem, this woman versus woman friction. And in 2020, we made so much progress in women supporting women. It was palpable. I could see it. It was tangible. And so I make myself super accessible. LinkedIn, obviously, that's, I'm the GOAT leader on LinkedIn. That's my URL. And it is a double entendre, right? Greatest of all time. And I live on a farm.
And I like goats.
And I have tons of goats, and I friggin' love them. And my very first article was how everything I learned in business is from goats. And so I love those little creatures. You can find me on LinkedIn as the GOAT leader. You can email me, lauren@leapconsultingsolutions.com. I have Leap Jones on Instagram. I mean, LinkedIn is always the best way to get me. And I do, as a rule, respond within 24 hours. So if you're, and I try and give I work with a ton of women, free sessions. I'm not charging anything, just to help answer questions that they might have if they're fearful of being an early entrepreneur, because it is scary. You do kind of feel like you're standing there with your fanny hanging out. And that's, it can be a little scary, a little overwhelming.
All right. Well, thank you so much for those of you joining us on our Facebook Live. And you are always welcome to come and join us on a live Tuesday at 2, where we invite you to go off mute and enjoy the conversation once our live stream is over. So bye, Facebook.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Facebook.